In the pale light of dawn, the air is fresh and crisp across the sprawling hills of white. Orchard. A soft mist drapes itself over gentle fields and copses of wild apple trees. There, leaves whispering in the barely there breeze. The world seems to hold its breath in these early hours. Birds call softly from their hidden places, their melodies mingling with the faint and distant clatter of a village just beginning to wake. Geralt of Rivia sits upon a weathered log beside a slow-moving stream, his boots dewy, the cold water tracing lazy paths between smooth stones. His white hair catches the morning light, silvery, almost ethereal against the darker woods behind, and his golden eyes flicker with quiet intelligence as he surveys the tranquil landscape. Beside him, Roach grazes in silence, her tail flicking gently at a persistent fly, her calm a steady anchor. In a world often on the cusp of chaos, there is time here, no urgent hunt, no rumbling thunder of war, only a peaceful lull. Between journeys, Geralt draws in the sense of the land. Moss and clover, distant wood, smoke, the faint sweetness of wildflowers blooming along the bank. The stream gurgles, softly, carrying away fallen petals and tiny leaves, tumbling them end over end in a dance, as old as the land itself. Above, the sky is a gentle blue, clouds drifting, unrushed. He takes this moment to reflect, to breathe deeply and let old aches melt away. The medallion at his throat vibrates not with warning, but in quiet resonance with the gentle magic that flows unseen through the soil and root and stream. His fingers absently trace the familiar hilt of his sword, not in readiness, but as one might rest a hand on an old friend's shoulder. As the sun rises further, its light falls across the worn stones of a nearby bridge, illuminating clusters of wild mushrooms and shifting shadows. The road beyond meanders, through meadows bearing the soft hum of bees, past orchards heavy with ripening fruit, ribbon leading elsewhere, but never demanding, never rushing him on. From the village comes the distant, warm sounds of daily life, the creak of a cart, the laughter of a child, the gentle scolding of a mother. Soon the aroma of baking bread floats on the breeze, mixing with the tang of fresh-cut hay and the earthy musk of soil just turned for planting. For a time, the worries of monsters and men fade into the far background, replaced by a gentle acceptance of this peaceful present. Geralt quietly checks his gear, his motions slow and deliberate. He sharpens his blade not for war, but with meditative calm. He polishes a vial or two, content in familiar routines. Each act is a quiet ritual, a comfort in repetition, grounding him in the present. Nearby, Roach lifts her head, and for a while man and horse share the silence, companions lulled by the world's gentleness. In this moment, the valley sings a wordless lullaby. The possibility of adventure sleeps beneath every blade of grass and ripple of water. But for now, the only quest is to be present, to listen and observe, and to let the currents of the wild world bring rest to a weary heart. Before long, the sun caresses the hills and the mist begins to burn away, leaving behind only a memory of its cool touch. Geralt stands, stretching slowly beneath the endless sky, and takes up the reins, not because the road calls, but because moving forward is simply part of the story's gentle flow. He moves onward, at the pace of the land itself, calm, unhurried, and filled with the quiet, patient promise that whatever comes next will arrive softly, colored first by peace and the beauty found in every lingering dawn. The road from White Orchard drifts beneath Geralt's boots and Roach's careful hooves, a thread of earth winding through fields brushed with gold and the rustling green of new growth. The morning has softened into midday. The air is warm and scented with lilac, the sunlight lazy over rocks and hedges. There is no rush, only the quiet cadence of each footfall, a rhythm that matches the gentle bobbing of wildflowers as insects flit from bloom to bloom. Memories come easily here, as Geralt and Roach trace familiar paths. Every turn seems to carry the echo of laughter, a cordial greeting, or perhaps the memory of an old friend's advice. The land is kind today, lending itself to reflection without the weight of sorrow or regret. Light dapples the road in shifting patterns, and each patch of shadow offers pockets of coolness, a brief respite for both wanderer and steed. Passing a field still wet with dew, Geralt recalls mornings spent training with Vesemir at Caer Morhen, those early lessons when the world felt manageable, the horizon a comforting constant. The wisdom of his mentor settles over him like the sun's warmth, not a burden, but a quiet guide for the journey still to come. As he rides, images surface, gently, the camaraderie of old friends, the soft humor found over shared meals, the sound of steel meeting steel in spirited sparring, all threaded through with the music of crackling hearth fires and wind rattling the castle's shutters. The path leads past the edge of the orchard, where elder villagers move at the pace of seasons rather than hours. One pauses, leaning on a rake, offering a slow wave, her face creased in a smile that speaks of recognition and stories never hurried in the telling. Geralt dismounts for a moment, exchanging a few soft-spoken pleasantries. They talk of harvest, hopes, the health of livestock, and an especially good batch of cider pressed in the quiet autumn months. Each word drifts between them like fallen petals, never urgent, always easy, belonging wholly to this land and its rhythms. Beyond the village, the road forks, crossing over a stone bridge worn smooth by the gentle tread of countless travelers. Down by the river, children gather, their giggles threading through the sound of water on stones. Families picnic in clusters beneath the spreading boughs of ancient willows, baskets filled with bread and cheese. The peace here is so complete that even Geralt, forever marked by fate, feels the edges of his cares soften, his mind growing still, accepting rest where it's found. The day ambles onward. Geralt and Roach take their time exploring shaded copses, pausing to watch a deer drink from a pond, its reflection broken only by the flutter of a passing swallow. Along the bank, reeds whisper secrets to the wind, and the world seems to shrink to only the two travelers and the gentle harmony of land and sky. As evening begins to draw the light long and thin across the fields, Geralt finds a quiet spot to rest. Roach grazes peacefully, ears twitching, and Geralt sits on a low stone under a budding hawthorn, letting his thoughts wander and settle. The hush of approaching twilight invites him not to move, but to stay, and so he does, savoring the gentle passing of time. With the first stars blinking in the blue above, Geralt closes his eyes, trusting the world around him to hold him safe. The echoes of his past, companions both cherished and lost, seem to whisper through the leaves. They keep him company, comforting as a lullaby, as another quiet chapter begins in the story that slowly, softly unfolds beneath the wide sky. Roach's steady pace carries Geralt beyond White Orchard, through winding groves and into the vast, open reaches of Velan. The countryside here is rugged, yet even the wildness of its untamed fields feels softened by the evening haze. Long grasses ripple beneath the sighing wind, their tips dusted with the gold of fading sunlight. The world quiets, each sound muted, as if nature itself is careful not to disturb the gentle peace. Blanketing the land, Geralt guides Roach along a path bordered by old stone walls, half hidden by ivy and wild roses. The air is thick with the sense of sage and earth, the distant hint of wood smoke from scattered farmsteads. Every so often, The cry of a nightbird cuts through the hush, its call lingering, a solitary note in the symphony of dusk. The road brings them to a broad, placid lake reflecting the last colors of day. The surface glimmers as if sprinkled with coins. Pale fish dart beneath, their movements barely causing a ripple. Geralt dismounts, leading Roach to drink at the water's edge, while he sits a while beneath the drooping branches of a willow. The soft, muffled sounds of the lake water lapping at stones, the slow croak of a frog, the rustle of reeds wrap around him, inviting him to settle further into the slow rhythm of the world. Here, by Wieland's patient waters, Geralt finds a space for quiet thoughts. He remembers old journeys, nights spent tracing these banks in search of healing herbs, brief moments of shared laughter with fellow witchers, sorrow's hush and hope's gentle light both passing through his memory like drifting clouds. He thinks of those lost and found, the endless turning of the story's wheel. A fisherman rows lazily out from shore, his strokes steady and unhurried. He hums a tune that rises and fades in the dusk, becoming part of the landscape's calming refrain. Geralt listens, his eyes half closed, feeling every minute as an invitation to rest. There is nothing here that needs immediate solving, only the certainty of a world that, beneath all its struggles, holds pockets of peace for those who know how to look. A splash pulls Geralt's attention to a heron, standing still as a stone, poised in its own endless patience. In this calm, he feels the simple joy of observing, of being one among many quietly sharing the fading light. Small villages nestle along distant banks, their fires twinkling in windows as night gently settles over the valleys and fields. The sounds of home, soft voices, dogs barking distantly, laughter trailing on the wind, are comforting. Nothing to disturb the slow drift towards sleep. Geralt tends to his potions and blades with practiced ease, movements slow and familiar. He then lays back, resting his head on his folded arms, gazing up at the stars beginning to peer. They twinkle in the velvet night, mirrored in the lake, setting the stage not for battles but for dreams, gentle, wandering ones that travel far and wide, carried on the easy breath of the nighttime breeze. As peace settles over Wieland, Geralt allows himself to drift softly towards sleep, trusting that, for tonight, by the safety of quiet waters and in the company of an old friend, the wild world will hold its troubles at bay, letting him rest and renew beneath the tender gaze of the stars. The sun rises quietly over the open fields of Wieland, painting the tall grass in soft gold and inviting the world to wake at its own pace. Geralt guides Roach along winding tracks that thread through meadows dotted with wildflowers, daisies, poppies, and delicate bluebells. The morning is mild, the mist blending with the green in gentle, rolling waves. Birds wheel overhead, their shadows fleeting on the ground. Squirrels dart across fallen logs while foxes watch from thickets, their eyes curious but unhurried. Life in these wild places moves with patient certainty. Even the crows, often messengers of darker news, seem more interested in the warmth of the sun than the cares of distant towns. Traveling further, Geralt finds himself in a clearing bathed in dappled light. Here the world whispers with possibility. He pauses a moment to let Roach graze, a chance to listen to the wind's soft voice as it stirs through branches and carries the subtle sense of heather and pine. A wandering herbalist crosses his path, a basket bobbing on his arm. His steps are measured, his greeting friendly. He and Geralt talk of nature's bounty, the best patches of celandine root, the rarest mushrooms tucked away beneath mossy stones. They trade stories, the herbalist of early mornings and gentle discoveries, Geralt of old roads and soft laughter among companions. Each tale drifts and settles, neither hurried nor forgotten, a part of the day's easy rhythm. In the distance, scattered cottages hug the edge of the forest, their thatched roofs peeking out from a jumble of lilac and holly. Smoke trails rise from chimneys as villagers tend to chores and children play with dogs and geese near ponds. The peace here is unbothered, the sounds of daily life never sharp, only woven gently into the tapestry of earth and air. As Geralt continues, he spots deer nibbling at low branches, unafraid in his quiet presence. Every now and then, a rustle hints at something unseen. A rabbit, a hedgehog, perhaps nothing at all. He smiles to himself, content to share space with these small mysteries, content to let the wilds unfold as they wish. He enters a copse where trees grow close, their leaves filtering sunlight to a soft, shifting green. Time stretches. Geralt moves slowly, savoring the stillness that fills each glen and hollow. In one such place he discovers a circle of standing stones, ancient and worn. He sits for a while, admiring the patterns of lichen and moss, letting the magic of old stones and silent histories wrap around him in calm. By midday, Geralt finds a brook and kneels by its edge. The water is cool, flowing in gentle currents over smooth pebbles, mirroring the drifting clouds above. He drinks, refreshing his senses, and lets the babble of water ease out any remnant tension. Roach drinks too, her ears flicking lazily at insects, and together they share silence before the next leg of the journey. When afternoon deepens into warm sunlight, Geralt moves again, following paths that wind endlessly through Vieland's wilds. Each step, each encounter is slow, gentle, and marked by the easy companionship of the land itself. A living world that invites relaxation. Without hurry, where adventure is measured not in battles fought, but in moments of peace, embraced one quiet hour at a time. As the wilds recede, Geralt finds his path winding toward the great city of Novigrad, its distant towers softened by the morning mist that drifts from the harbor. The city's bustling, heart waits, but as Geralt and Roach approach along the quiet banks of the Pontar, it seems more a friendly giant waking from a deep sleep than a crowded maze of noise and light. Crossing into the city, Geralt passes through sturdy gates, greeted by gently murmuring guards, their armor dulled by use and warmth. Inside, the stone streets wind in leisurely curves between rows of half-timbered houses and broad, sunlit squares. Novigrad is famous for its vibrant life, but in these early hours, everything moves at a kinder tempo. Vendors arrange wares with patient hands, bakers fill the air with the safe, nostalgic scent of rising bread, and cats bask in sunlight as apprentices sweep doorsteps with slow, careful strokes. Geralt leads Roach through side streets awash in soft light. The colors of market awnings and fluttering laundry shift slowly in the breeze, casting shifting mosaics on cobblestone. Children skip past, feet padding in rhythm with distant bells tolling the hour, then disappear around corners, their laughter echoing only faintly above the city's gentle hum. Each window holds a small domestic scene, steam curling from porridge bowls, grandmother brushing a girl's hair, two old friends greeting with a calm embrace. He leaves Roach in a sun-dappled stable, her head low as she nuzzles fresh oats. The stable master, hands rough but careful, promises to look after her while Geralt explores. There is comfort here, a sense that even in the city the world is capable of gentle care, of routines that soothe rather than strain. Geralt wanders at his own pace, pausing to admire flower boxes tumbling with lavender, and petunias to dip fresh bread in cool goat cheese, and to listen to the distant strum of a lute from a darkened tavern window. He exchanges quiet greetings with a merchant, polishing brass lanterns, who tells him of slow days and the promise of rain. The city's rhythm seeps in, a leisurely din, a mosaic of footfalls and bird calls, the splash of water at the harbor and the rise of distant song from a hopeful troubadour. As midday approaches, sunlight pours through the high arch of St. Gregory's Bridge, glimmering off the broad surface of the river. Geralt finds a bench beneath a willow and sits watching boats drift by in lazy silence. He observes a fisherman repair his nets and children feeding crumbs to circling ducks, each movement deliberate, every moment drawn out. The city may be famed for secrets and intrigue, but today, its soul is simple, content, and calm. Even the shadows in the alleys are soft, hinting at cool places to rest on warm afternoons. Even the chiming bells feel like a lullaby, calling the heart home. Geralt lingers until the sun droops low, lighting the city in golden hues and softly calling lamps to life. He returns to Roach, her coat gleaming in the last rays, and together they walk slowly from the city's embrace, filled with a quiet gratitude for the gentle peace found amidst Novigrad's winding, sunlit streets. When the time comes for Geralt to journey to Skellige, the world opens wider, embracing the blue sweep of the horizon and the slow lull of rolling seas. The ferry glides from Novigrad's breezy docks, its passage smooth and confident through gentle waves. Geralt, wrapped in his cloak, settles at the prow beside crates of dried fish and bundles of herbs, letting the cool spray of salt air refresh his senses. The islands of Skellige rise in the distance, emerald hills crowned by silent mountain peaks, cliffs wrapped in mist, and the haunting cry of gulls drifting overhead. The world feels ancient here, raw yet tender, shaped by wind and water over uncounted years. The boat draws near to the shore, and Geralt steps onto pebbled sand, every stone rounded by endless tides. Villagers greet him warmly, faces weathered, smiles easy and welcoming. The language is different, the customs unique, but kindness is universal. He follows narrow paths lined with wild thyme and heather, their fragrance wandering with the soft breeze. Homes cluster in coves above the surf, roofs thick with moss, windows glowing in the early shadows of dusk. Geralt's feet trace routes over hills swaying with grasses. The wind sings in his hair and whispers old stories through ancient standing stones, tales of laughter and storm, of peace found between waves and the gentle hush of winter snows. Cattle graze in scattered fields, their bells ring softly, subtle companions to his thoughts. In a village square, elders gather by a roaring fire, voices rising and fading in rhythmic stories that tumble without urgency. Children listen with wide eyes, their questions met with laughter. Geralt accepts a humble cup of mead, its warmth spreading through his chest as he settles onto a sturdy bench. There is no hurry, only the slow unraveling of another peaceful evening. At dusk, Geralt walks alone along high cliffs, the world below bathed in silver light from a rising moon. The air is brisk, refreshing, and the only sounds are those of wind over stone and the distant echo of surf breaking on rocks. He finds a sheltered spot among boulders and lets his gaze wander to the constellations above, each star a quiet companion. Sleep comes easily, surrounded by the gentle music of the islands, waves whispering secrets, breezes dawdling through the grass, distant drums from joyful celebrations drifting across the hills. In Skellige, rest is not a thief, but a gift offered freely, a soft pause in the dance of wild adventure. Tomorrow may promise new journeys, but tonight, Geralt finds only tranquility, cradled in the winds and whispers of a time-worn land. Morning in Skellige is a tapestry of gentle sound and silvery light, woven from distant gulls, calling above sunlit cliffs and the soft shuffling of village life below. Geralt wakes in the cool hush beneath a ring of ancient elder trees, their gnarled branches twisted gracefully toward the sky, leaves sighing in the wind. Moss cushions his resting place, and the air carries the brisk scent of salt and earth, a blend both grounding and invigorating. He takes a slow stroll, letting the world wake with him. The ground beneath his boots is soft, sometimes damp from the passing mist, and wildflowers, yellow, purple, blue, dot the meadow in quiet profusion. Each step feels like a gentle invitation to reminisce, to wander back through the years that have brought him to this peaceful morning. As Geralt wanders, memories settle lightly over him, like petals falling on still water. There are echoes of laughter in taverns dim and warm, shared with friends whose names conjure nothing but fondness. Faces blurred by time smile from within his thoughts. Yennefer's wry grin before the fire, Ciri's laughter ringing across busy streets, Dandelion's carefree songs rising somewhere in the distance. Here, beneath wise old trees, these recollections bring comfort, their presence reassuring and softening the edges of solitude. Villagers carry on with morning chores, mending nets, tending fires, leading geese down winding paths. Their words drift on the breeze in a lilting tongue, and though Geralt may understand only some, the sense of belonging is clear. Children chase each other between stumps and root, laughter bubbling up like spring water. Occasionally, someone stops to nod respectfully, a greeting that is both recognition and invitation. Geralt responds in kind, his own smile lingering as the world moves gently past. He settles upon a sun-dappled boulder, watching as a group of elders gather at a long bench, sharing stories of their youth and the legends of the Isles. The narrative winds slowly, tales unfolding like the gentle unfurling of leaves, never hurried, always graceful. Geralt listens, the cadence of their speech as grounding as the trees themselves. The elder trees above stand as silent witnesses to countless seasons and lives, their branches hosting darting wrens and sighing breezes. Geralt finds himself pausing often, leaning against a trunk, feeling its ancient strength and letting it still his own thoughts. Every rough knot and patch of lichen tells a story, of rain and wind and quiet nights spent sheltering under leafy arms. Time here moves differently, stretching out, holding space for rest, memory, and gentle resolve. Before midday, Geralt is joined by Roach, who nuzzles at grass in easy contentment. The pair rest together beneath the shade, hearts and minds calmed by the tranquil rhythm of life on the Isles. There is no need for words, no urgency, just the soft presence of a trusted companion and the restful certainty that everything unfolds as it should. As the sun climbs higher, bathing the world in gentle warmth, Geralt rises to continue his journey. The memories linger, threaded through each step, bringing quiet strength from the past into the calm promise of the day ahead. The elder trees sway behind him, bidding farewell not with drama, but with the patient grace of ancient beings. As the road beckons gently forward, the riverside city of Oxenford greets Geralt like an old friend, its towers and rooftops softened by layers of evening mist, its distant hum a lullaby of study, music, and gentle celebration. As Roach carries him across the wooden bridge, lanterns begin to glow along the city's bustling quays, casting golden trails on the water and warming the cobbled streets with puddles of light. Oxenford is a city both learned and light-hearted, full of song and story. Tonight, however, it shows its quiet side. Students walk arm in arm along the canal, their laughter subdued, books tucked under arms, voices drifting on the mild air. From open tavern windows, the gentle strains of lute and flute weave between the crisp autumn scents of ale and roasting chestnuts. The clip-clop of horses blends with the soft rattle of wagon wheels as vendors finish unfurling their last pots, chattering quietly as twilight deepens. Geralt leads Roach to a stable and walks the lamplit streets at his own unhurried pace. He passes the university's ancient courtyard where ivy creeps over old stone and students pause for thoughtful conversation. The air is cool and calm, and each lamp sways gently in, the breeze casting shadows that dance leisurely along the thoroughfares. Though he is a man marked by the wildest fragments of the continent, here Geralt finds refuge in simplicity and order. He pauses on a bench beneath a chestnut tree, where falling leaves scatter around his boots. Across the square, a poet recites to a small, sleepy crowd. Their words are not charged with drama tonight, but with reflection, tales of rivers and journeys, of wisdom gained in quiet hours, of the peace promised by familiar verses, repeated softly at day's end. Geralt dines in a modest inn filled with amber light. The meal is plain but comforting, rustic. Bread, a bowl of stew, cider slightly spiced. He sips slowly, savoring the tastes, letting the background murmur of gentle conversation fill the room. The innkeeper's smile is easy, the company kind. No one asks anything but for him to stay a while to share in the warmth and story of an ordinary night. Later, he steps back out beneath the stars. The city's heartbeat has slowed. The last market stalls shutter and families gather by hearth and candle. Geralt walks the edge of the river, watching the steady blink of lanterns on distant barges. The water laps the piers. In a slow, rhythmic hush, all around Oxenfurt breathes deeply, wrapped in scholarly dreams and the comfort of communal rest. He returns to his room in the inn, windows open to the soft night. Above, the sounds of the city fade, only the occasional church bell and the sigh of wind in the eaves persist. In this safety and stillness, Geralt allows himself to unwind, easing into well-earned rest with the knowledge that even a witcher may find, now and then, a place of gentle belonging beneath the lantern light. A soft gray dawn finds Geralt departing Oxenfurt, the river's mist curling around the cities towers as he sets off once more, heart quiet and unhurried. The world stirs gently. Fishermen prepare small boats, their movements deliberate. Cooks light hearths with careful patience, letting the warmth and sense of the morning drift slowly through open shutters. The road winds between golden fields and pockets of autumn forest where dew glistens on every leaf and spider's thread. Birds warble sleepy songs, and distant herds move with the measured peace of another day's beginning. Roach walks at an easy pace, her hooves muffled by the damp earth, her head bobbing in contentment, guided by the witcher's steady hand. In a village on the way, Geralt is greeted with nods and half-remembered smiles. He stays for breakfast, sharing bread and honey with a family whose laughter is soft and close. The elder matron pours him tea, her motions slow and practiced, her stories drifting along the table like the scent of apples and cinnamon. There is no fear or suspicion here, only calm, acceptance and the quiet comfort of being, for a moment, a welcomed guest, part of someone's cherished routine. Further on, the day warms. Geralt helps a shepherd retrieve a lost lamb, accepting thanks in the form of a woolen scarf, lovingly knit and vibrant with simple color. The exchange is gentle and without fanfare, a reminder that in this world, kindness is not always grand or heroic but often humble and lasting, a thread woven through every ordinary day. Geralt pauses often, letting the slow current of the journey wash away the sharp edges of old anxieties. On the edge of a silent forest, he finds a familiar face, a friend met long ago. On a rain-soaked road, they exchange memories under a sheltering tree, words slow, filled with bittersweet affection and gratitude for paths crossed and shared. There are smiles, and perhaps the weight of old sorrows too, but everything is softened by time and the knowledge that all stories eventually find their resting place. As evening falls and the road grows quiet, Geralt camps beneath the wide arms of an ancient oak. Roach grazes nearby, fireflies blinking in the laughter of summer's last breath. The Witcher reflects on all those he has known, the friends and strangers, the fleeting encounters that brought wisdom, peace, or simply a moment of shared stillness. He feels the deep satisfaction of gentle closure, the sense that every connection, every goodbye, has its own quiet beauty. The stars shine brighter as the world settles, and Geralt drifts towards sleep, calm in the certainty that nothing lasts forever but memory and warmth. The journey is not yet finished, but its end feels close, a soft promise at the horizon of his thoughts. Tomorrow will bring the final steps, gentle, unhurried, guided by all the peaceful strength gathered along the way. Dawn arrives quietly, brushing the sky with soft pink and gold, as Geralt of Rivia stands at the crest of a gentle hill. Below him, the world is peaceful, a patchwork of silent meadows, thick woods veiled in morning mist, and villages just beginning to stir. The whole land stretches out before him, not as a place to conquer, but as a home returned to after a long journey. The Witcher lets his gaze wander, savoring the weight and lightness of this final morning. Roach stands nearby, patiently waiting, her presence as steady as ever, comfort embodied in familiar shape and sound. Geralt takes a deep breath, filling his lungs with the sense of dew-damp grass, blooming wild thyme, and the faint, sweet remnants of spring's promise. It is the kind of air that invites a person simply to stand still and listen. He moves slowly, unhurried, following a winding trail that loops back through favorite haunts and gentle woods. Along the way, he passes farmers tending early gardens, their greetings quiet and sincere. Each wave, each kind glance, is less a farewell than a soft affirmation that his story, like theirs, is woven into the steady rhythms of the land. As noon nears, Geralt pauses by a lake ringed with reeds and lilies. He sits for a while with his reflection, letting memories ripple outward, each one fading gently into the silver blue water. He recalls battles and laughter, pain and hope, all transformed by time into the quiet wisdom that comes only from honoring each moment, however small. The horizon shimmers in the midday heat. Geralt walks through fields where the grasses sway to music only they can hear. He lies back under a willow, arms crossed behind his head, eyes half shut, letting the peaceful hush seep into his bones. Roach grazes quietly, her shadow shifting with the sun. In the golden hour of afternoon, Geralt meets an old friend at a wooden table outside an inn. They share quiet words, a fine meal, and hearty, silent laughs. The world around them slows to a heartbeat's pace, as if time itself wants to linger over every detail. The taste of shared bread, the warmth of sunlight on worn hands, the unspoken history held in every exchanged glance. As evening falls one final time, Geralt wanders back to a familiar glen, a place between shadow and sunlight, where every path begun has left its gentle mark. He makes a small fire and sits by its soft crackle, gazing up at the first stars. Their light is steady and enduring, like the calm that has followed him through seasons of wandering. He thinks of old teachers, of fleeting loves, of warriors and wise women, all is present in the hush of evening as in cherished memory. Sleep comes softly, riding in on the cool drift of night air. In this last moment, the circle feels complete. Trials gentled by time, joys deepened by rest, every ending simply a quiet folding of the day, leaving open the promise of another morning, another calm adventure, in a world at peace. And as the fire burns low and the constellations spin above, Geralt surrenders at last to perfect rest, not as a warrior, but as a soul content, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the world he carries within and the stories that make him whole.